Our next storyteller is my husband, Matthew Dix. Matt has been teaching 5th grade in West Hartford. I wrote a number here, I'm not sure if it's right. For 24 years? That was right, I got it. Okay, great. 24 years. And he's also an author. He's written 6 novels and 2 works of nonfiction. One of them is about storytelling. So if you are interested in doing this, it doesn't have to be about the Holocaust. It could be about things that happened in your life. You should pick up his book and learn about personal narrative storytelling. So he started, our whole journey into storytelling began because Matt was participating in and usually winning competitive story slams for shows like The Moth. You might know their show on NPR, The Moth Radio Hour, which is excellent. He started about 15 years ago, but we never could have predicted where it would lead us and that we would join with organizations like this and get to have so many amazing opportunities. In addition to Speak Up, Matt now consults with all these awesome businesses, organizations, and individuals about how they can use storytelling to improve their marketing and communication, and I'm very, very proud of him. I was very invested in who Matt chose to have brunch with, since he doesn't have brunch without me, so I was like, who are we gonna be having brunch with? And he picked Moses, and this is what he said: I'd have brunch with Moses. As a person who wants to believe in God but has been unable thus far to find faith, my hope would be that in the midst of his asparagus and zucchini frittata — I don't know why Matt is assuming that that's what Moses would be eating. I feel like that's a long shot. But anyway, asparagus and zucchini frittata, God might bestow upon him yet another miracle, another burning bush, another carved tablet, another dividing of the Red Sea. I'd be happy with a spontaneous division of my scrambled eggs, just something to offer a little proof. Moses' faith is hardly impressive, says Matt. God talked to him constantly, tossed around miracles like confetti. I have yet to hear it peep. All right, well, that's a grievance. You have a grievance. It's hard, obviously, when you're thinking of famous Jewish people from history, it's hard to argue with Moses, but I felt like I would probably join Phyllis and Gilda over that. But anyway, please welcome Matthew Dix.
Moses lived like 600 years, too. Reportedly.
There was no asparagus and zucchini frittata back at that time. Okay.
I wasn't going to eat it. All right. Thank you. I'm standing in the middle of a cemetery in Paramus, New Jersey on a cloudy Wednesday morning just a couple of weeks ago. We're gathered to honor my wife's uncle, Jerry, who has suddenly passed away. It's about 50 people gathered around the grave, and I'm sort of on the periphery, standing in the back, trying to stay out of the way, which is what I typically do in situations like this, when my son, Charlie, who's 10, comes over to me and he says, "Why are they shoveling the dirt into the grave with the shovel upside down?" And I tell Charlie, I have no idea. I'm not Jewish. I'm often at a loss in these situations. I want to tell him, I don't know why they're shoveling dirt anyway. Like, I've been to funerals where someone tosses a handful, but there's like 4 men really doing work. They're shoveling an enormous pile of dirt into this grave, and I can't help but think that 1,000 years ago, some Jewish gravedigger played a fast one on all of you and said, hey, this is a tradition. You have to fill in the hole yourself, and it stuck around. I'm wearing a yarmulke, and I'm not sure why, and I actually don't know if I'm supposed to be wearing a yarmulke, but someone handed it to me, so I put it on my head. But if Charlie asked why I was up there, I would say, I really don't know. I don't know why we had to bury Jerry less than 2 days after he had died, because it seemed like kind of a rush. And, you know, people had to come from far away. It just struck me as inconvenient. But the thing that I'm most surprised about is the rabbi. The rabbi clearly never met Jerry in his life. He's speaking and getting facts wrong and being fact-checked by the immediate family in the front row and actually asking them at times for information about the man who he is putting in the ground and speaking about for the very last time in that man's life. And Jerry's grandson, Michael, who's a grown man himself, he spoke at the funeral beautifully and eloquently and made us laugh and actually spoke factual information about the person who we were honoring. And I couldn't help but think, why didn't Michael just do this thing? Why did we have to have the stranger here? Like, I understood he sang a couple songs, but nobody knew those songs, or at least nobody sang them. And if we had just like slid Jerry into a freezer for a couple weeks, I think Michael could have pulled it off. and done a really good job. I'm married to a Jewish woman for 16 years now. We've been together for about 2 decades, but she's also the first Jewish person I really ever knew and the first Jewish friend I ever had, so I'm still new to this game. I'm better. I can go through an entire Passover Seder, and I almost never turn the pages of the Haggadah in the wrong way anymore. And by the 4th night of Hanukkah, I can do the prayer, but I don't, because I don't know if I'm supposed to. If I take Alicia into a Catholic church, not that I'm Catholic, but if I take her into one and it's a funeral or a wedding and the priest says, "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name," I don't think she's going to do that prayer. And I don't think she probably should or would, so should I be saying something while the candles are being lit? I just never know these things. And as a result, even though I often find myself in rooms where I am one of the only or the only person who is not Jewish, and I've come to feel much more comfortable in these situations, and most of my friends are actually now Jewish, I still always feel like I'm slightly on the periphery, on the outside. So a couple of days after the funeral, I ask Alicia, I say, "Do you really want your funeral to be that way? Because I need to plan. I'm not going to die. And to acknowledge that I would die would require so much therapy that we really couldn't afford anything else. And so I move through life assuming I will live forever, and therefore someday, the worst day of my life probably, I will have to bury my wife." And I said, "Do you really want a rabbi who really either doesn't know you at all or will know you a little?" And she said, "Yeah, I do." I said, "Do I really have to bury you like a day after you die? I really can't slide you into a drawer and like plan something like good with music and the right food? Like, I know a lot of performers who could come and say some really great, like it could be an event." And she said, "I sort of want it the way it's supposed to be." And so I set a new goal for myself, legitimately 100%. My new goal is, I need to become a rabbi. Now, I'm not Jewish and I don't plan on doing that, so I need to really make a leap and somehow become a rabbi who is not Jewish, so that on the day my wife dies, I can be the one to speak about her. When I asked her all those questions, what I really was asking her was, on probably the worst day of my life, do I have to feel like I'm on the periphery? Do we have to have a person there who will speak in a language that means nothing to me and doesn't know nearly enough, frankly, will know nothing about you in the way I know you? Do I have to have that last moment with you before I put you in the ground be one that just feels a little bit different than what I would expect? And that's how I often feel when I come to work with these folks, these voices of hope storytellers. And it's a little worse because they're Jewish, so I'm always feeling a little on the outside, but they're also the children and grandchildren of Holocaust survivors, which really raises the bar. They have a lot in common, and when they get together, they talk. And when we're able to meet in person, they really talk. They just want to share everything with each other. And I am on the outside quite often looking in. And to their credit, every single group, every single Voices of Hope storyteller in this room has always brought me in and has always made me feel like part of the group, and yet always also on the periphery. And then 8 days ago, I received an email from my Aunt Diane. 8 days ago, she emailed me. She's my family's historian. She is the person who's investigating her parents' life. My grandfather, my Pepe, and my grandmother, my Meme. They've passed on, but Diane wants to find out what their lives were like. And 8 days ago, I received this email from her. It says, April 26, 1945, the liberation of Dachau, 78 years ago. She says, Pepe Mandeville was one of the first American soldiers to enter and liberate Dachau. Pepe's captain was constantly sick throughout much of his time in Europe. So his captain remained behind that day. And so your grandfather, the first lieutenant, led the troops into Dachau. He and his men were the first American soldiers to pass through the iron gates and liberate that camp. And then that night, I spoke to Phyllis. And I discovered that her mother and her aunts were in that camp on that same day. Now, there were 30,000 people in Dachau when it was liberated, so it is unlikely that my grandfather and any of Phyllis's family encountered each other. But maybe. But more importantly, there's a spot on a map on a day 78 years ago where a boy from Woonsocket, Rhode Island, and 3 women came together in a way that I had not known about until 8 days ago. And it made me think that if my grandfather could cross an ocean and land in France and fight his way through France and into Germany and liberate a concentration camp with people in it whose family I know now, maybe I can take one step closer from that periphery. That if my grandfather can make that enormous leap and sacrifice, all of those steps to get to that place, to do that thing, that perhaps I will be able to get a little closer to feeling included in this amazing community and feeling more a part of the community than I've ever felt before. Thank you.
I hadn't actually heard Matt's story until just then, because we are really busy people. That was really great, honey. And I was thinking about, you've talked to me before about feeling on the outside, and it is true that I bring you to places where you are the only non-Jewish person. But the thing is that if you are not doing this, right, and if other non-Jewish people are not part of this, then we lose, because there's not enough of us to keep these stories going. We need you, and we need other non-Jewish people to be our allies and take these stories forward. So you are as important as all of us. Yeah.